morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on Talk to Them. I am your host, Kennitha Wade.
I am your other host, Renauda Mitchell. And today we have with us...
I'm the third co-host today, Imani Muhammad.
Yes.
Nice to have you.
Yes, thank you for joining us. My recap for this week. I feel like this week has kind of been a blur. It's I got some interesting things going on at work, which have been trying to really kind of keep work separate from home has been a major thing for me, and trying to really pay attention to how much time I give into work, because I find myself at home on my computer doing work at 5 p.m. And my paycheck, they stopped paying me at 3:30. And so really trying to create more of a boundary between work and home, but also people questioning if I'm really putting in 40 hours, and when I know that I work more than 40 hours every week, kind of one of those things at work. So it's been interesting, just kind of really paying attention. But I think for the last few months, my focus has really just been my kids. And so work is kind of like, I get work done and then we're going to turn that off and we're going to focus on home life. And so I think that's been a lot of what my week has been, just really kind of keeping those two things separate.
It's funny you say that. This week, I've been kind of forced to do that because, a couple weeks ago, I don't remember when it was. I'm not really. Last couple weeks have been kind of blurry, but it's starting to set in a little more that like my brother is really gone. Like when I be like, oh, I need to send, or oh, I need to say, or let me ask him, and it's like I know that conversation's not happening. So turning off work, because like I found myself like, especially when you're in the business of helping people, you overextend yourself, right? And I've just kind of been like, I'm gonna help y'all while I'm on the clock, but I don't have time. I mean, I'm not supposed to be anyway. I'm not salaried. My time don't extend beyond this, that, or third. If I'm not clocked in, I'm not getting paid. So like, what am I doing? But I found myself also not allowing work stuff to occupy my brain space, but it's because I don't have the capacity, because otherwise I'd be sitting there wondering like, dang, I wonder if so-and-so is really following this plan, or I wonder if, I'm saying, but I don't have the capacity to do so. And like the last couple of days have been really hard. I've been like, just turning in on myself. Like, I don't want to, I didn't talk to Kennitha. Did I talk to you yesterday? Like physically talk to you? Oh, yeah. I haven't been doing well emotionally, so there's that. And I'm here this morning, not sleeping, not really eating, just whatever. I'm trying to make myself do these things, but I'm at that stage of grief where I'm like, okay, this is really sinking in. Going through text messages and Facebook posts, and then I see like was doing that this morning too. Went to a Facebook post where he put me in sibling jail. We was going back and forth in text message, and he was like blocked. And I was like, I made a post on Facebook like, my brother's putting me in sibling jail. And then when I clicked on the comments, it was his sister saying, oh, he blocks me all the time. And me and her were going back and forth in the comments, and I was like, I remember when he lost her, how hard that was for him. And I remember just being like, I'm here for you, blah blah blah, and just thinking like, man, that's gotta fucking suck,
right?
And then here we are, and it fucking sucks. So not to bring the room down, but that's where I'm at. Yeah. So, it's not that I'm sleepy or high like somebody once asked. I'm just not in a good space. I thought that was funny. But I'm just not in a good space. But I'm going to, get it together. And, I still got to show up for my events and show up for my kids. Before my events, I got to show up for my kids. But I'm saying public facing. I have events and stuff that I have to do and work. And life does not care that you're going through shit, like at all. So that's where we at.
Understandable.
And I wasn't ignoring you. I was like, fine. I have my phone that I do all my social media on. So if you friends with me on Facebook, I was sending her like a million reels and Ari and G, and I was like posting stuff and commenting. But my actual phone is a different phone, and I don't know where that phone was until like, was it midnight when I texted you or something? And I was like, oh my bad, I was supposed to let you know if I was going to the party, and I wouldn't have been. I'd just been sitting there
I knew you
bringing
weren't
the
going.
energy. I wasn't.
Uh-huh.
I was gonna try.
Oh no. I mean, it was okay. I was like,
No,
I don't need to go anyway. So
okay.
it's all good.
I was gonna try.
I believe you.
Mm-hmm.
But I think your friends knew you wasn't going.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, first I just want to just commend just the vulnerability, because I think one thing that people don't do enough of is be vulnerable. You know what I mean? Like, just hearing the little bit that you shared, who knows how many people that will impact in terms of just like, oh, she going through that too? Because we just don't talk about grief. And grief comes in so many different ways, so many forms. And we think there's a timeline, like you only get 7 days. Or, at work, you only get 3 days. Yeah, bereavement pay is 3. What? Like 3? I'm still trying to figure out what just happened. So I just want to just honor what you just shared, because that's huge. And I think more of us, especially in our community, we have to talk about it, because life and death are 2 constants that happen in this world. We can't change it, can't get out of it. That's just what happens. So I'm sorry for your loss, but just thank you for sharing that, and being vulnerable. My week, well, I came back from vacation. Let's just start there. I came back from vacation. The work that I do, it is very hard to, as you just mentioned, like when you're in the business of serving people, it's like you feel like you're on call 24/7, no matter what. Like, even if you're at home with your children, you still feel like some event, something's going to pop up, and you feel like you have to respond. So I took it upon to say, I'm going to go out of town. I'm not going to bring my computer. And that was like the first, when I tell y'all, the first time that I've never brought my laptop. And usually I'll take the laptop and I may never even open it, but it's that security blanket, like Charlie Brown. You got to have the blanket. So, or Linus, it was Linus. But I said, you know what? I'm not going to do it. So I didn't bring it. And I only brought my little notepad to write. I wrote in there one time. And that was when I was playing spades. So we had to keep track of the score. Right. But it was such a good, 4.5 days of just waking up and not feeling like, what practice do I got to go to? What grant do I need to write? Do I got to take my mama to the store or whatever, So, love you, Mom. Shout out to moms. But yeah, so it was good. But when I came back, actually that Friday morning, I felt like something in my chest, like respiratory. And I came back from that trip and I've been sick I was sick for 4 days. And it was like the flu. I don't know. I thought I had COVID times 10. It was a lot going on. The bones were aching. So I literally came back from vacation and stayed in the bed for about 4.5 days. Okay. And so, yeah, that was a different vacation. And then now, now check in with your body for about 4 days.
Pay for more to have
Pay
fun.
for vacation. Yeah.
It's a new trauma.
So, and then that actually was right at the start of Ramadan. And so we can talk about that later. But so I rolled right into fasting. So it's just been an interesting last couple of days of just being in tune with the body. I'll just say that. But it feels, I think I'm on the mend. I'm probably about 75%. And so, yeah. That's been my last couple of days. It's yay, and then
right,
and then now okay. So yeah,
it just maybe that was just your body saying you need more than 4 days. You know, 4 days of chilling, okay, but you ain't done. Your body ain't done.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
it could have been nicer though about it. It could have been a little nicer. My entire joints didn't have to hurt. The fingers and it was bad.
But you know what I've learned though, if you're a person who won't sit yourself down, which we all 3 of us share, your body will sit you down. Yeah. So maybe it was okay, you have fun and now you're just gonna get right back into it. Okay,
because that's what she was gonna do, I'm sure.
It's Friday, y'all ready for practice?
Yep. Oh, you already know. You already know. Yeah. Yep, I believe that. The body will arrest you and it'll sit you down. Yeah. So I got sat down.
Yeah.
I did.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about Imani. Let's share with everybody.
Yeah.
Who is Imani?
That's Muhammad. A great question. Who am I today? Well, so first of all, I'm born and raised in Portland. I'm proud of that. I actually just was reading a Facebook post today about the division that takes place in our Black community. And there was this whole argument about like the people that come here versus the people that are raised here. That's a whole nother topic we can jump into whenever we're ready. But so I'm proud of being from Portland. I think that Black folks, Black and brown, Indigenous people that have been born here, raised here, and have been successful, I truly believe we can go to any place on the planet and be successful. It's not that Portland is so great, but Portland is such a unique city to where you have to find your community, find your niche, and you have to really know who you are to be able to like thrive in a city like this, right? And then once you get that, you go anywhere else and people will be like, you from where? I mean, I don't know if y'all experience that, but when I travel, people are like, you from where? And I'll be like, Portland. They're like, you ain't from New York? Or and then they do that, or they're Black people, and I'm like, yeah, Portland, Oregon. And they're just shocked because usually if you make it here, you have a certain demeanor about you, certain confidence about you. So yeah, born and raised here. My family originally is from Arkansas on my mom's side. My dad is Caucasian, grew up in Oregon City, Grant School area. And, you know, I stayed here for college. I went to St. Mary's High School, went to Concordia College for 3 years, transferred and went to Cascade College. At that point, I decided I should probably get a degree in Bible since I went to a Catholic school, a Lutheran school, and a Church of Christ school.
Okay.
But in that journey, I also, at age 16, found the Nation of Islam, and I joined the Nation. And so I would say actually more than half my life, I've been a practicing Muslim since 16. And I'm just a little over 16 now, just a little bit. And but I share that to say that is like really my root and my foundation of the work that I do, why I care so much about our community, why I care so much about our people. And then from there, I mean, you know, there's all types of stuff in between: life, marriage, divorce, children, you know, all the things that take place. But in 2007, I was a middle school teacher. Actually, I just finished teaching middle school. The school had closed down. So in 2007, one of my former students was at Benson High School, Devontae Lightfoot, and he was actually killed on January 7th, 2007. And his death, I mean, one, it just shook me and the community. But it was one of those moments where, as a teacher, you're looking for your students to come back and say, you know, Miss Muhammad, I got married. You know, Miss Muhammad, I got a full ride. So like to have like your student be killed, it was devastating. And so 3 weeks after his death, I pulled the community together and we held what we now call our first youth summit, which was February 3rd, 2007. And our youth summit was an opportunity for young people around his age group. So at that time, like Mike Capes, who is now a known artist, he was like a sophomore at Roosevelt. So it was that age group. And so they were on a panel discussion. We had youth moderators, and we just allowed the young people to kind of express like what's going through, you know, their lives, what are they experiencing, you know, and more importantly, how do we as a community respond when a 14-year-old gets gunned down by a 16-year-old, right? In broad daylight on a Sunday. And it was a crazy time. It seems like the times repeat itself. You know, here we are still dealing with some of the same violence. But I shared, that was the piece where I started what now is the nonprofit that I run. So in 2007, we started the work. We became incorporated as a nonprofit in 2010. And that nonprofit was kind of just an event-based nonprofit, like the little side hustle. So I worked for Boys and Girls Clubs of Portland for many years. And then I would just do annual events every February. And we did that for about 13, 14 years. And then we started kind of transitioning right before COVID. We started really calling out the school to prison pipeline, because what we know is that our young people, you know, if they're not reading at grade level by third grade, that is where the prison industrial complex begins to start looking at indicators, and that's how they determine how many prisons to build. They literally look at reading scores, because that is an indicator that either puts you on a track to school to prison, 6 feet deep, or in the streets. Like it's just straight up statistics. Of course, it's generalizing, right? We can all break out of those molds, but that's how they determine which and how many prisons and where they build prisons. So if you look at like the South, Alabama, Arkansas, a lot of the brothers and sisters that are in prison are also illiterate. And so there's a direct correlation between reading levels and comprehension and prisons. And so I started getting heavy into that research, and that was just like mind-blowing, but also like, what do we do different? How can we change that? So we kind of switched our mission to our nonprofit to call that out, to call out the school to prison pipeline, and then really be intentional about the work that we do. So raising awareness around literacy, being advocates for parents, mentorship, providing mentors, or just having responsible adults around children, right? To give them a different look at life. And then being able to create and curate events that were positive, pro-social, family environment, whether that's a movie night and movie and dinner night, or a youth summit, or a Kwanzaa festival, or a marketplace, like just being able to curate events for Black excellence. So that's kind of been the trajectory of our nonprofit. And then in 2022, we got a building out in East County on 162nd and Stark. I've been in that community since 2017. And once we got the building, we just been flowing and growing. And so I was able to leave my 9-to-5 after 18 plus years last September. I left Boys and Girls Club, and I've been running my nonprofit since. In addition to that, I have my own, LLC. I have a bookstore. I sell shea butter, sage, for your mind, body, and soul. I also have a consulting company that I'm starting, or I've started it, but haven't really pushed it. But I do facilitation, workshops, coaching. Oh yeah, and then I coach. Forgot that part. And then I coach. The basketball piece, I just have to say this and I'll pause. But I played college basketball. I played a couple years after college, not overseas or anything like that, but there was like a semi kind of pro league that we were playing in at the Salvation Army back in the day when Earl was running it. And I did that, but then maybe like 4 or 5 years after playing basketball, I kind of just stopped basketball, like stopped playing. I coached with a couple coaches, and then I just basketball was not part of my life. In there, got married, had the baby, divorced, all of those things. And there was just something missing in my life. And if you had asked me at that time, if I knew it was basketball, I had no clue. I just felt like something was missing from me. I was still doing direct service, still working with children, but it just wasn't the right thing. And then I had my son, and he, about 5 years old, he gravitated to basketball. And so I started coaching him and kind of training him. And I kid you not, the first little gym practice that I had a bunch of little 5-year-olds in the gym. And I was like, that is what I've been missing. And I mean, from there, I have not, left the gym. And I just say that to say that a lot of athletes, when you don't have that to go to, especially if you played it as early as 3rd grade and you go all the way to college, and if you don't go pro or whatever, it is a hard transition. And sometimes without knowing that there's a big transition, you forget, or you just, you go through. So there was times where I was depressed. There was times that I just didn't know what could fill my cup in that way. I still think I can play, but I can't, I broke my foot a while ago. But the mental part and being able to deposit that energy and that passion into the younger generation is so fulfilling for me. So I feel like I kind of got brought back to what fills my cup in the last about 5 years. And so that's Imani right there.
Okay.
Today.
All right. Present day.
Present day, right? Yep. Hot off the press.
I will say too, I do know, I played sports, but not all that long. Once I got kind of developed, it was just not, they didn't have the same kind of stuff for us that they have now for a lot of the athletes. So I was done. But I know a lot of people who played all throughout school, like you said, all through and then into college, and some after college, whether it was basketball or football or whatever. And when they stopped, it is this whole because when you play sports or you do art or something like that, it is a large part of your identity.
Absolutely.
And you don't realize how much space that takes up until it's not a thing. And I know Tyler. So he played all throughout school or whatever. And he went to college. He played in some leagues here in Vancouver and Salem and Portland. And like now he coaches. He coaches his son. Then he was also like you, his son plays, and his little brother and a couple of other kids that he's like mentored and coached and stuff like that. And I remember he called himself trying to stop for a minute, and I was like, okay, we'll see. I didn't tell him, but I was like, we'll see how long this lasts. And then the next thing I know, he's coaching. And I was like, yeah, because you can't let that go. But when you're not, like, even when for a while I stopped writing, after my mom passed, I was like, yeah, I'm not writing anymore. It wasn't like a conscious decision, but I was like, I didn't feel like doing anything. But I noticed that when I picked the pen back up, like a part of me felt like it came back alive or whatever. And it's that same thing. And if, like you said, if you don't know, it can put you in like a spiral where you're like, well, what's wrong with me? Or why can't, no matter what job I have, like I went after this job and it's still not fulfilling, but you have to take care of all those things that made you happy at some point. And it's very
And I think for me, it was people that I would run into and they would remind me of, oh, you still got your jumper? And I'm like, I ain't shot a ball. And, you know what I mean? But it was in those moments of like, wow, okay, one, I made impact, I guess. And then two, to your point about identity, that was the identity that preceded me, right? So people are like, oh, you're a hooper, right? And I'm like, I ain't got a pair of basketball shoes in like 5 years, So, but it was also that reminder. And I think that's another piece around having good people around you, or, having a circle and a village that sometimes when we do get lost, we get off the course of this thing called life, and we don't know sometimes which way to go, through experiences, whatever happens to us. If you got a good, network or community that can lift you up, those gentle reminders will help you kind of get back to like, oh yeah, I did used to write, you know what I mean? Or yeah, I am a poet, So I think that is also important too, is that having key folks around you, so that, we all will get off the course, but do you stay off the course for 10 years? Or you stay off for 10 days, And I think that's the value of community and what I have found in terms of like Portland community. Portland community, I think, has a way of holding me accountable in so many different ways.
Oh, they do. They will.
In a good, in a good way too. Yeah. So.
I'm saying that to say we went to that event that that G hosted on the Sunday after we had the storytelling thing, where I ran in a cameo. And she was literally, I'm trying to mind my business and I'm singing along with it, and she's recording me. And then she made a post on Facebook talking about, oh, this guy. I'm like, why are you telling people? It's none of yours. Stop it. But I said that to say, like, if that is something, and I don't know if it comes from us being such a small community, but also being like, I see greatness in you. Is like how I take it. Like, I see greatness in you. What are you doing with your gifts?
Exactly.
And I don't know. I gotta buckle down, but I think that's cool.
I'm thinking about that. You guys make me think about Mariah. Mariah used to draw and all kind of stuff. She likes poetry. She likes to draw. She likes to write. And she's kind of lost the urge to do it. And I try to encourage her as much as I can. Like, girl, you have a gift. Like, keep going. And she's like, Mom, I just don't want to. And, she's only 15. So it's like, okay, maybe it'll come back around. But like really trying to pay attention to opportunities where she can do that. And then thinking about some situations now that she's going through that, that kind of probably caused her to even more so, not do it because of other people and their actions. It's like, how do we continue to foster those things in these kids? Because, especially when they do have a gift, like that's natural. Just keep working on it. It get better.
Right. Yeah.
It's like that for Renauda too. Like how she'll be like, well, first of all, she loves coming here because she's like, I'm going to go paint with Kennitha. Okay, well, whatever. And, but looking at the art that was installed at the open mic, in the same place where we do the open mic at the Harlow, I'm looking at some of the stuff and I'm like, this is, and this might sound like messed up because I don't mean it like that, but I mean like, people make it seem like you have to have this spectacular, intricate, like whatever, and you got to have all the schooling. But I'm looking at stuff, I'm like, my daughter has done something similar, or to me personally better, and not because I'm her mama, because I'm very, I'm very objective. I'm not gonna say that I think something's good if it's not, but art is subjective, right? But I'm looking at stuff and I'm like, my child has done some stuff that is equally as good as some of the stuff that's up here. But it's the same thing. She doesn't want to paint all the time, But she'll be like, I'm like, oh, well, we're going to go over to, Kennitha and G's or whatever. And she'll be like, ooh, do you think we can paint? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure if you ask Kennitha, she's willing to paint. Like, y'all will probably have a whole moment where the rest of us are just like, okay, well, don't wait for them to get it done. But like, getting her to want to paint more often, but she has her moods, right? So at least she's, into it. But yeah, like how we get held accountable by the community, kind of push that into, not push, but like, hey, you want to do that more. She's also an excellent writer, storyteller, but she doesn't want to write it down. But that is something that I'm forcing her to do. Just FYI, you need to write because y'all already don't know cursive. So
let's talk about these kids and this writing. Okay, this is a pet peeve of mine. And my daughter sent me a text the other day.
Oh,
it said, "Mom, we're going to raise for game night." No exclamation, no period, no question mark. I thought she was telling me something because of what she said. And so, I'm like, okay, they're going to raise. In my assumption, Dad must be taking him to raise right now for game night. So when I get off work, I'll just go over there. And I'm heading over there when I get off work, and I'm like, let me call my cousin. I called my cousin, and she at work. I'm like, how they at your house for game night? Are you at work? Wait, what? So then I called my daughter, and she said, I was asking you a question. And I'm like, see, this is my problem with y'all and the way that y'all write. Like, y'all need to write full sentences, and you need to think about it. You didn't say, Mom, are we going? You just said, Mom, we going to raise for game night, period. Well, how am I supposed to interpret that? I'm so confused.
That's a full sentence. That's not a question.
So in my mind,
a statement.
Facts. I'm like, I called her. I gave her the whole, third degree about this text message that she got me driving back and forth across Portland for. And so then by the time I get home, I work halfway between the two. So I'll drive to North Portland because I think that's where they're at. Then I got to go back home to Gresham. Now y'all want me to pick you up and take you back to North Portland? That ain't happening. Now that ain't my fault because I was willing to. But y'all need to figure that out. Stop texting me these. They're missing,
because my kids do it too. And so when I have a tendency I do a blink like several times at my phone. So I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do with this. But they don't transfer the way you can say that in person to the way that translates on text. Because in person, Mom, we going to Ray Ray's for game night? That sounds like a question because of the inflections
tone,
and all exactly. that. When it's just words, okay, have fun.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? All right. Maybe I'll go take a nap. Yeah.
Well, that's the beautiful, sarcastic educational system. I mean, they took out phonics, they took out cursive writing, and yeah, if you don't know, I mean, penmanship is huge, and these children that's all gone, and I think it's interesting because our age group, I'm just assuming that we're close in age.
We are.
We're the elders now,
Which is
crazy. Like, that's the real talk. We're the elders because we're the bridge between the baby boomers, right? Our parents, and then before whatever they are, Generation Z, whatever that is. So we're the bridge. Like, we're that last generation that was raised with phonics, that was raised with understanding syllables when you talk and clap at the same time with letters and words. Cursive, like, that's it. They took it out of the schools. And then a lot of the schools now, when they went into that whole, we're not going to assign homework, whatever that, however, and it was actually it was some professor that did some case study, and then these schools adopted it across the nation to not give homework. And so now it's whatever they can do in the classroom. But then the classroom, there's no teaching in the classroom. It's all like individualized learning. Here's a packet, turn in your packet and let me know when you're finished. Well, what about because that only meets like 3 kids' needs. What about the majority of the classroom that need talkback, that need, movement with their learning style, that need, application, right? Which is a lot of Black and brown and Indigenous youth. So when you take that out of the classroom, then of course our children, are getting lost in the shuffle. And then you add in peer pressure and bullying. So yeah, I may have a gift, I may have a talent that's not mainstream, right? It's not basketball, it's not sports. And so I'm drawing, and so now I got somebody in the classroom, oh, that's ugly one time. Now I don't want to do it. You know what I mean? And so it's, you talk about like not only the educational piece, but then the psychology that is messing up our children's confidence, self-esteem. I mean, we had it in our day and time, but we also had like tag. So if you was talented and your peers were talking about you, you can get pulled out and go into a group.
I was at tag.
Yeah,
I was at tag.
you know what I mean? I wasn't. I was mad. But I knew about it. I wish I was. You know what I mean? They didn't see a gift in me at the time. But there were, you know what I mean? They had groups.
Yeah.
To where when they saw something in children, they can put, so then you weren't necessarily ridiculed. When everything is mainstream, you got 2 kids that are A students and the rest is class clowns, and they're all mixed in together. It's like, ain't nobody gonna try to learn. Ain't nobody trying to read. Ain't nobody trying to, you just trying to get by. And so I think that's a big issue with a lot of these public schools. And, my son is homeschooled. I said all that to say that's why I wanted to protect my son's learning and his psyche. And he's homeschooled his whole middle school. He'll go to high school. And my hope is that he has a foundation of who he is. He's not torn down. He doesn't, he's not being given a narrative of what it means to be a Black boy. He understands his identity. And so that when he hits high school, he knows he's a student athlete. He has a foundation. And so, yeah, he's going to get tempted. He's going to have distractions. But my hope is that those 3 years that he's been kind of incubated, at home and in a very small learning environment, that he'll be able to navigate some of those distractions that are, I think 10 times worse than what we were growing up with. So, but I think, if just back to the children piece, it really requires us to, as parents, even do more that we don't necessarily have capacity to do. That one-on-one with our children. The world is tearing them apart, in terms of who they are, giving them a false identity. And it's just, if we're not really in tune and help building them up and pouring into them in all the different ways, something will sound real nice and they'll jump and just go towards that. And so I think it's really imperative now that we have to, like that, it takes a village, like that really is huge. You know what I mean? And that's part of why, as much as I get burned out at times with coaching, not because I don't like the kids. I love the kids. Love the children. It's time consuming, and there's moments where I know my son feels like he's missing out on me, like just mom time. But I'm so committed to what I feel like God gave me as a mission that I feel like I have to shine my light, for the world. But at the same time, my son misses out, but that's why I have a village. You know what I mean? If he's missing something from me, I call up one of his aunties, uncle, somebody. He needs a little walk today. He needs somebody to take him to Sky Zone. And if it ain't me, then somebody else can step in. And I think the more we understand that need, we can all kind of fill in the gaps where either the educational system's not doing it, or whatever these other institutions that are not provided in the way that they're supposed to. We can step in as a village to help our kids, because it's a crisis right now. And I think our children are suffering. You talk about drug use. I mean, you throw all the stuff that's being impacted in the schools early right now. It's a SOS, I think, right now with our children. Like we have to step in even more.
Yeah. I want to talk about the classroom dynamic that you were talking about, which my daughter is, she's very interested in learning. But like you said, at school, there's not really a bunch of, part of it I feel like also is when teachers want to teach, they will.
Right.
Regardless of whatever, it says. You can make your classroom look, push the line, teach these kids. But the one particular class that my daughter is extremely interested in, she's like, the teacher tries so hard to teach, but because kids aren't listening, because they say this is 6th period, 7th period or whatever, all your other classes you haven't had to focus on what the teacher is saying. You haven't had to follow any rules. These other teachers don't care. You get to a teacher that cares, and they may not care because it's not a subject they're interested in. Right. She can't learn in that environment. Right. And it's like a frustrating, the teacher is trying. This particular teacher is trying, because there's also teachers she has where she's like, they just come in, they just sit down and let the kids just do whatever they want to do. They pass out packets. You finish your packet. If you have questions, they get frustrated, like you're just supposed to know it. Right. But how am I supposed to know it if you never, you got up on the board, you gave 2 examples and then gave me a packet, and I'm supposed to know it.
I'm still stuck on step 1.
But as a teacher, how long were you in school to be here to teach me?
Right.
And how well did they do the same thing to you? Like, oh, here's how you do it. So she's in middle school. She's going to high school next year. She's in a like, what's the point in middle school?
Right.
I had a blast in middle school. Like we kicked it real big in a way that I'm glad my kids don't kick it. But
right.
We also like we had like structured classes and then we had teachers that was like, oh, you got to sit here and focus because we also had our math teacher was our PE teacher and that was weird. And our science teacher ended up being our math teacher another year because we were short and they were like, well, if you can teach science, you can teach math. And he told us that and he was like, so basically good luck. And I was like, wow, but at least he tried. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of teachers, and not to knock teachers who, a lot of them are probably burnt out.
Absolutely.
Trying to fight against the kids, the systems, the parents.
All that.
But because I will show up to a school.
One of the things, right. One of the things that I just learned recently, that Oregon passed a law, and I think it goes into effect 2026, where, and I don't know if it's all like elementary, middle school, high school, but I want to say it's a statewide law that they cannot expel students. And because of the whole, so this is where research works for us, but then it doesn't, right? So we already know those that get expelled and get, disciplined at a higher rate is Black, Brown, and Indigenous youth more than anybody. So to combat that, right, they were, they went all the way on the other end saying, well, you just can't expel, right? So now, if I'm a teacher, what's my backbone? Like if I got a student in there really cutting up, but I also know that they can't really get out of the school. So now my hands are tied. You know what I mean? So I think we're going to have even a bigger issue next school year because what happened, especially when COVID hit, a lot of the good teachers, right, burned out. They left. Like there's a large number of qualified, old school teachers that just said, I'm leaving the profession. So now you have these first, year teachers that are being taught this kind of new way of teaching, teaching our children, and they don't know anything. They know textbook. They just graduated, they read a book, and now they're in the classroom. And they probably got one of the toughest classrooms, right, in terms of just how to be engaged and how to actually really teach. And so that's why we don't have real teaching going on in the majority of these schools, because you've lost, longevity of history of how to actually teach, and then you've lost this actual genuine care for students, right? Part of teaching is about a relationship, right? If you got a good relationship with a child, you can teach them anything, right? If you don't have a relationship, I don't care how smart you are. You can be the physicist of, wherever. If you don't know how to connect with me as a person, then I don't care about your numbers. I don't care how smart you are. I definitely don't care about your PhD. So part of what's missing too is relationship. And I think that's why, especially in this city, we don't have a lot of Black and brown teachers. One, that's an issue. But then two, has to be a genuine care for the student and their investment of being a good person. You know what I mean? And a lot of times the teachers are just paycheck to paycheck. They just want their job. They're done at 3. They're not trying to do no overtime. You need after school help? Yeah, we'll go over here to the counselor, and I'm about to pack up my car and go home, right? So, I grew up in an era where teachers were putting in that work. They stayed after school to make sure that I understood what 2 + 2 was. You know what I mean? Or whatever my struggle was. And we just don't have that anymore. And then you insert after school programs, right? And again, after school programs are not paying more than minimum wage, really. And then you also have people that, again, don't have a genuine care for the students. So now they're just glorified babysitters. Let's be clear. And again, no knock on any after school program. There are some out there, and I ain't naming names, that are doing great work. But majority of the people that are in those programs, a lot of them are just there to supervise, right? But no one's really sitting down with children to give them those life lessons, to really check in with them. How you really doing today? Like, I don't even care what happened in school. Like, what's your home life like? Do you need anything? Do you have food today? Like a lot of that stuff is missing. And I think that's where I think as a people, as society, if we can get back to just humanizing who we are and humanizing the need to want to actually care about the next person, then I think we can actually start changing and moving the needle on our kids knowing how to write, knowing how to do basic things. But right now, it's like these kids can feel it. They can feel if you don't give a damn about them.
Absolutely.
They feel it from day one. You walk in the room. So it's like, if I know right now that you don't care about me as a person, I'm not going to give you anything. I'm going to give you one-word answers, and I'm going to have attitude. And you can call my mama, and I don't care.
Right.
Because at the core of what I feel, you don't give a damn about me. And at that point, like you can preach, you need to respect your adults, all that we do. But on the other side of it, we can relate. We know why that child is responding to that teacher in that way. That teacher don't give a damn,
right?
And so part of what I had to realize as a parent, do I keep sending my child to an environment that's doing that on a daily basis? And I don't care what skin color. My son had a black teacher his 5th grade year, and first and only, and that was not good, And so I had to pull him out of that environment because he was still continuously being told that he wasn't great, in all the different ways, not directly, but just subliminally, all of that. So, as a parent, I said, am I going to keep sending him to the same institution that I know damn well doesn't care? So I had to take the responsibility, and that's where I said I pulled him out, and he's homeschooled, and but I know everybody can't do that. But at the same time, that was what and how serious it was for me. I can't keep sending him to the same system that I'm advocating and pushing the needle on about taking care of our babies. But then my son is going, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
That's unfortunate. My daughter's first and only, there's an art, or what is it, the dance teacher the kids aren't too fond of, that's black. But I think it's just because he pushes them more than they want to be pushed. But her first black teacher was Yolanda McKinney, who we're trying to get on the podcast, eventually in the summertime. But she is a super dope individual, and everybody who runs. It's funny because the school she was teaching at, my son was there first, and she didn't even know me at this time. But she walked past my daughter's class, and she's in there just cutting up. The class is all over here doing what they want to do. Renauda's over there on the carpet doing cartwheels and whatever she want to do. And she looked in the window and was like, opened the door and said, "Hey, get over there," and blah, 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 blah. And so she was like, she went over there, she sat down, and the teacher was like, "How did you get her to do that?" She's like, "I told her."
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I saw her.
Right.
I recognized her and told her what to do.
So, but then she seen me picking up my kids after school. She's like, "I just want to let you know before your daughter tells you that I said, well, thank you. I appreciate it, because you know what I'm saying? That listen, the teacher never told me anything. This whole time Renauda's over there just doing whatever she wants to do. And I'm like, you're letting her do whatever. She's not a hard-headed kid.
Right.
But you can't talk to my child. I'm not saying talk rough to her, but you can't be like, "Okay, now class." No, you need to talk to her with some sort of authority, not like you crazy, but with some like, "Hey, okay, it is time to." And if she don't, Renauda, you need to. You know what I'm saying? And all she did was open the door and said, "Hey, get over there and sit down and pay attention with the rest of your class." And she kindly went over there very quickly and sat down, because at this time, I think Renauda was still under the belief that everybody who had any kind of brown skin was our relative. So she might have thought that was her cousin, her auntie, somebody. She was like, let me, before she tell my mama. But that's somebody who genuinely cares. And then especially sees our babies, because at that school, at that time, they were being treated very unfairly. And something that, like when you're talking about the discipline for our kids, my son was being suspended regularly for fighting. But he's not antagonizing nobody. He's not putting his hands on nobody first. People were messing with him. Right. And he's defending himself. And because you're picking a fight and losing, you're suspending him too. Right. And then they're like, "Oh, well, because they got to suspend everybody who gets physical. So I said, "Okay, fine. The next time somebody touches you, just get them off of you and go tell an adult instead of just dog walking them. Let's just, get them off you." He got jumped by 2 boys. Beat them both up. Not beat them up, but he did what I said. He got them off of him, went and found an adult, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to have to suspend him." I said, "Y'all have lost your mind. 2 people beating up on 1 child, and y'all want to suspend him because he was supposed to sit there and get beat up until an adult noticed when they are off in a side little thing by the gym." How often do adults go over there? There's the way that I work now, I can't do it to where I can homeschool my kids unless they're in one of them programs that's self-guided. But we seen through COVID, they not going. My kids will be like, I'm going to sleep, or I'm going to play Fortnite, or I'm going to like whatever. So I don't know. I wish I could have just kept them at home until they went to high school or whatever, but it's not. That's the school system we in is just not a good one.
Well, it still hasn't improved much. I know my daughter comes home, my youngest daughter, who she just realized that she's going to be the only kid in school from now until she graduates high school. She's not going to have a sibling in school with her anymore.
Oh, wow. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And she's 4th grade. And she's like, no, G's going to be there next year. No, G's going to be in high school next year. And you're going to be in the 5th grade. Then when you go to middle school, G's still going to be in high school. And then when you go to high school, G's going to be done. And she's just like, oh, what? It's just going to be me. Yep. It's just you now. And but every day she come home talking about how some kid called her the N-word. And we've had this conversation with her school. We've had this conversation with her principal, her teacher, and another individual. And as often as she comes home saying this, it's like, okay, do you tell somebody? I tell people out on the playground, but they tell me it's not my responsibility. You got to go tell your teacher. And then, or she'll go find another person, and everybody's answer is that same. And nobody's dealing with the issue. And, you know, it's like, okay. And since then, again, they've like, well, we're listening. We're doing this. We're doing that to address it. Again, she still comes home every day.
Right.
Somebody called me the N-word 3 times today. You know, and it's that, at what point do you say, okay, enough is enough? Like, I can't quit my job and go sit up at the school with you all day. I wish I could. But I can't. But, you know, do I keep sending them back? Or like, what do you do? You know, we keep having these same conversations, and this stuff keeps on happening. And in a school where there's not a lot of brown kids, or I mean, there's enough to have a presence, but it's still not a whole lot. And none of the staff, not very many of the staff look like the students, you know? And it's like, what do you do?
And I start threatening to beat people's mamas up.
Well, you would think that.
You one of those?
I am. Because listen.
You one of them parents that I had to deal with.
So, because listen.
Like, don't fight her.
So, it's a 2-step process.
For sure.
Or maybe 3 steps. I address the school first.
Yep.
And then I'm like, can y'all take care of this? If it happens again, can we have a meeting with the parents? If it happens again, well, except for the one time where the little boy said he was going to slap my daughter. And I said, tell him if he slaps you, I'm going to beat his mother up.
Okay.
Because I feel like, why are you, like, that's ridiculous and that's wild. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it because it's like, well, do you want to escalate this? Do you, you know what I'm saying? Like, or can we both parent our children? Like, you know what I'm saying? My kids don't run around just hitting people for no reason. You know what I'm saying? It's only in defense of self or each other or whatever. Let's not do this. And I try steps. Because, but then it's like, okay, well, if you can't get your child to stop, especially like there was a little boy who told my son he was going to stab him. Okay, well, what's up?
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? The school going to tell me he has learning disabilities. Well, he needs to learn somewhere else then.
Period.
Because that's a threat now. And then they're going to tell me they can't say what to do. And then me and the mom met, but this is a problem child. And she didn't speak English at all. And I understand that he has problems. That's fine. But then he needs to be somewhere that can...
That's not in the mainstream.
Right. Because he clearly is too... Oh, well, he didn't mean it. He didn't mean it until he actually stabbed somebody.
Exactly.
And if that's my son, it's going to be a problem.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So, yes, I do. I do. I come up to schools.
That's me.
Yeah, that's me.
And I think too, though,
that's G.
I get it. I mean, I got a tinge of that too. I think too, though, when we think about the parents of the children, right? Like, you know, there was that whole generation of children having children, like, honestly. And so now you have that philosophy that's in a lot of these younger parents that don't talk to my child. So when you were sharing that example of Yolanda going into the classroom and being like, girl, stop doing what you're doing. There's so many parents now that are like, don't talk to my child, right? And so now we have like an issue between the village, right, mentality, but then also like, you can't talk to my child. It's like, girl, well, somebody got to tell her, right? Because you know, and so, but then that's how now the children don't feel like anybody can correct them other than their parent who ain't correcting them, right? So now it's like, so now I don't have to respect authority, you know, so, and it's just, it creates that cycle of really just uncivilized behavior is all I can classify that. And I think for me, you know, to the homeschooling piece, you know, I struggle with my son with discipline and all of that. I mean, my son gets up at 4:30 in the morning. He's in an East Coast school. And so he gets up at 4:30 in the morning. So I already know that comes with problems, right? He tired, you know. And then that does come with monitoring the internet. You know, he'll jump on YouTube real quick or whatever. And so all of that comes with it. And with that sacrifice, I still think is so more important than sending him somewhere else to get the indoctrination of all the other stuff, right? Not to say YouTube is so much better, because it's not. It's horrible when you go down that little path. But I would rather those problems, right? Like, he's not 4.0 student right now, you know what I mean? He's struggling in some classes. He got 13 missing assignments. Like, you know, it's everything's real. At the same time, I'll take all that, you know what I mean, and deal with all that and deal with my own frustrations of like, okay, do I need to take 3 days off of work to just make sure that he's caught up? Like, whatever I got to do, I'm willing to do all that before I send him back, you know, to an institution. And so I think for me, again, it's just that sacrifice. And I have one, you know what I mean? So I get that. I'm going to say this, but I recognize I have one. I don't want nobody talking about you only got one. I don't need to hear none of that, all that talk. But I do know I have one. You know what I mean? So I know that my decision making obviously doesn't have a lot of extra impact, you know. But it's important, because I think that my hope is that even if he, you know, barely skates by with the grades in middle school, I just feel like his psyche and who he is as a person and his entire being of just feeling good about himself, right, will supersede, you know, whatever the academic piece of it is, you know. And I also know that my son is not, it's not that he doesn't comprehend, right? He's just, I don't want to turn the assignment in. And when you have a child there, right, that's meeting grade level or above, it's like you can work with all the other stuff. I think it's when our children are not academically at the grade level, and then you have all those pieces, it's much harder to have to try to like interrupt that, you know, because you don't want them to get to 6th grade and still be reading at a 1st grade level, because now you got peer pressure, you got the bullying, you got all that that's at play. And so I'm naturally just going to be the class clown, because I don't even understand what they're even asking me to do. And they want me to read a chapter book too. Right. And I'm still on chapter 1 and they done finished, you know, like now I have to go to just acting up in class. And so that behavior looks different middle school, high school, right? Versus 1st and 2nd grade. And then the last thing I'll just say, because we done talked about a lot and I got all types of ideas and thoughts, but I want to say how they use criminal language when it comes to our children, right? So like our same children can have a fight in a classroom and it gets labeled as assault, right? Other children that don't look like our children, it gets labeled as, oh, that's just developmentally appropriate.
Or they were just playing.
Or they were just playing, exactly. And so there's language now that gets used on discipline paperwork, referrals, when they, you know, suspend us, all of that, that's labeled differently when it comes to our children. And I think that's another reason why that personally I kept my son out of that environment too, because my son is a hothead too. He's a little bit like his mama and his daddy. And so he'll have a moment and it will get classified as something that they exactly the same language they use when they're dealing with the prisons. And that stuff follows our kids, you know, and that's detrimental too. And because that's the reputation that precedes them before they even get to the next school. You know what I mean? I was telling our team the other day at practice, I said, or no, it wasn't a team. It was a group of like 3 little teenagers, 8th grader and high school students. And so they were talking about how they wanted to, you know, improve their grades, right? And they were all about grades. And I was like, well, what are grades for you? You know, why are grades important? I don't know. I think we're just supposed to get good grades to get a good job, right? Okay. Well, I was like, here's the deal. You want to make sure your grades reflect who you are, right? So I was a 2.0 student. I did enough just to play basketball, right? Now 2.0 and what I know I could do don't match, right? But what happened was when people saw my report card first, they're not even going to interview me. They see 2.0, okay, well, let's move on, right? So I was telling the students, it's like, you want to make sure your grades actually reflect who you are, because 9 times out of 10, no either college or high school is going to want to sit down and have an interview with you, because the first thing they're going to see is your grades. You know, it's just like a job application, right? Before they get to who you are and actually bring you in and see, oh, hell, you funny? You know, like before they even get to that, they're looking at who you are on paper. And if your paper don't match who you are, then you won't even get into a lot of doors. And so I was sharing with them, like, I get it. You know, maybe you don't want to be a 4.0 student, whatever, but at least let your report card reflect who you are. If it don't reflect who you are, you're losing out on opportunities, because that's what they see first. Before they even get in, you know, have a conversation with you and find out that you could be the greatest human being on the planet. Your paper got to show that, you know? So, anyway, I wanted to say that too, because a lot of times our reputation, our kids' reputation gets, you know, shaded based on behavior. And that's because of who's judging it, who's looking at it, and how they classify our behavior.
Yeah, they misinterpret that a lot. And I seen something too that was talking about how depression or ADHD and stuff like that shows up, especially in Black women and Black girls, and how it can look like an attitude or indifference or whatever. And it's like, do more studies on us. Like, you know, everybody, we're all different, right? So to be like, there's a lot of us who were never diagnosed with stuff. And if you go on Instagram, like nowadays, you find out you are all over that spectrum. And it's like, you tell Kennitha all the time, like, I am, woo, child, like, maybe I should go sit down and talk to somebody, because according to this, I'm in all these categories. But, and then somebody explained that being on the spectrum is like having a stove. And all these, like, there's all these things, and all 3 of us have a stove, and mine might be a little higher up on ADHD than yours is, and yours might be in the middle. And so people think, oh, well, you're on the spectrum, that all looks the same. The word spectrum alone says that it's all going to be different.
Everybody is on the spectrum.
And what it looks because that's how you have a spectrum. Like, you're not, oh, I wish I would meet somebody claim that they're so normal, they don't have any issues, and have never been through anything that has affected them in any way. That's
in and of itself is an issue.
Facts. That's your spectrum.
That's your spectrum, exactly.
That's what your spectrum looks like. But, you know, and then just saying all these little Black girls got attitudes, or maybe they have ADHD, or maybe they're depressed, or maybe they have anxiety. I know that when I am in like a depressed mood, people think I have an attitude. Also, when I'm in a relaxed mood, people think I have an attitude, because my face apparently says, I don't like you or anybody on this planet. But if you talk to me, then my face will light up. But what am I supposed, like, the day my brother passed, me, G, BJ, Andy, Rachel, we were all at this bar down the street from my house. And I have my shot. I'm walking we're going to the back to go play video poker or whatever. And this chick looks at me and said, smile. And I was like, she's like, no. Like, I'm saying that to say, I wish people would stop saying that to people. I know that, like, that's a sidestep, but I wish I wrote a whole poem about people stop telling people to smile, and then people get offended all the time. Well, you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, I can't be in whatever mood I'm in. You want me to smile because you're uncomfortable, not because you want me to really feel some genuine happiness. Something about my face not having a smile on it is making you uncomfortable. So I say that to say, when somebody may not be all chipper and this, that, and the other, you don't know what they got going on. They could be grieving. It could be ADHD. It could be anxiety. It could be anything, but just dismiss people as having an attitude. Like, when I read that, I stopped telling my kids all the time, well, why you got an attitude? And started being like, do you have an attitude? That's what I started saying. Do you have an attitude? And they say no. And I'm like, okay, well, you're presenting to me like you have an attitude. So what's going on? You know, and then, you know, that goes into the gentle parenting that people can't stand. But at the same time, I don't want my kids to grow up and be like, my mom never listened to me. She always thought I had an attitude. And she always yelled and this, that, and the third. I kind of want, that's why I'm into more gentle parenting.
Well, because you want them to be able to identify what they're going through on their own. Right? Without us being like, oh, you have an attitude. I do the same thing to my son. And Because at the end of the day, we want them to critically think on their own. And and a lot of times, hell, we don't even know what the hell we feeling at times. And we're adults. Mm-hmm. So you expect a 12 and a 13 and a 5-year-old to be able to, right now, I think my body is coming up and I'm having high blood pressure. Right. No, they don't know what is going on. They know that their hands is hot and they sweaty.
Right.
And they got a lot of energy and they just feel like running. You know what I mean? And they running in the classroom, right? And you're taking it as defiant disorder. And when the reality is that the child doesn't know what to do with the emotions and they don't have the vocabulary yet to be able to articulate what's happening because maybe, I don't know, maybe they're not talked to at home enough. There's all the factors, but you're taking them running in the classroom as they're going against your authority.
Right.
No, give them the tools, you know? And I think it reminds me of this, there's a thing called collaborative problem solving. And it's a technique that when you look at children's behavior, you don't look at it as bad behavior. You don't judge it. It's more of like, what's the skill that they're lacking? And I kid you not, when I began to adopt that, I mean, you still get frustrated as a parent.
Absolutely.
What the hell is you doing right now? But at the same time, if you could look at it from what skill is missing, like what skill have I not either taught as a parent? Did they skip over? Did they miss when I said it 500 times? But it's still a lacking of a skill. So if we look at it that way with our children, then we begin to teach more. We begin to have a more gentle approach and we can walk them through things a little bit differently. But at the end of the day, we want our children to be able to identify on their own as opposed to us pointing everything out. Because again, when we're not there, we want them to lean, well, Mom, what should I do? No, you got to figure this out on your own.
It's no different than kids cheating on a test, right? When they get the answer from somebody else, they don't know how to find the answer on their own. No. You got to find that answer. You got to understand. You got to see and be able to diagnose or figure it out without somebody having to tell you, because that doesn't mean they're correct even on what they're giving you, right?
Exactly.
It could be totally off, but it makes sense to them. And so now you think, well, they must be right. So this must be what it is. And it's not.
They have an answer, so it's got to be the right one.
Right. And problem solving, I think, is a huge skill that is lost. I think is teaching our children how to problem solve. And for me, I remember the problem solving in math was all these scenarios that did not relate to me. I'm like, I ain't got no apple tree in my whatever. Johnny got 4 apples, and then he went to the barn and got. What is a barn? I'm lost in the whole story problem, right? And I don't know Johnny, right? but the concept of problem solving was allowing us to be able to walk through and create steps and be able to understand how to solve problems on our own. And I think that is something that our children have to get back to. And my son, I don't know how he thinks he can do algebra or any math without a pen and a piece of paper.
Oh, because they don't need that. They don't need that.
And I'm like, what is? I said, sir, you have to
write it down.
I'm stressed out.
Hello. No, but I mean, they just, and if he can't do it in his mind, then he just can't. No, you're not supposed to.
I will say I'm one of them people. I don't want to write down math. I can do it in my head, and I promise you I have the right answer. And my teacher said, you will get 5 points off your paper if you don't show your work. And I was like, that's still an A.
Yep.
In my head, that was still an A.
Right.
Because I'm going to get this right.
Right.
So.
As an adult,
but it's the process.
We got adult students. If you don't show your work, you get no credit.
See?
If they would have said that, it would be different. But he just said 5 points off. I'll take that.
If I don't see, I don't care if you put it in the calculator. Put it in the calculator.
It's
you
the process.
Just need to write down this.
Yes.
Okay. Boom.
No, I'm a mental math person. I am you see this plus this, and here's your answer. And people are like, how do you get that? Well, you say this plus this, and it's this. Like, I don't know how to explain, but people have to go do the whole this one plus this one equals this, and this one plus. I don't have to it's just no. This plus this equals this. Why do I have to write that down? It's the right answer. You know what I'm saying? Okay. And I got it.
It's the process, though. You got to go through the process, because when you don't have it right,
up here.
Okay. Then you got to be able to.
Then you just got to put it on paper. They want to make sure that your process is right. That's all it is.
But okay, so the process when we was in school and the process that they going through with all these 6 little boxes.
That's different.
That's different.
Okay, but it's the process though.
Right.
I'm not putting nothing in no boxes in my head. They were
taught. When man, I be doing that. I be
the
like,
new
what
stuff
is
that
this?
they doing.
You doing what?
When Renauda first brought that home, I said, what the hell? I said,
I'm
no.
confused.
We're not doing this.
Yeah,
No.
I can't.
This
do
is
that.
how we're doing it. And
then
so
the crazy part, then the children will be at war with us. Because I remember I was teaching y'all seeing the real way of how to carry your number,
real way.
right? The real way. Ain't Mom, that's not what we're taught. Okay, I don't know what you're now we fighting. Now we're not even doing the math problem no more.
Right.
Now we're fighting.
I'd be like, tell
new
your
and
teacher to send something home so I can understand this process. Otherwise, it doesn't make
and
sense
I still
to me.
don't.
all.
And I'm not
Still
trying to
don't get it.
understand it because
She don't
math
want to.
works the way that I learned it.
We can get them on Khan Academy. All right, we up on our hour.
Yes.
This has been a good conversation.
It was a really good conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
We done jumped
I've been
everywhere.
trying to get Imani on.
She keep canceling us. She be busy with she prefers the
She
kids
be with
over
the kids. Look at
I do. Sometimes they get on my nerves though.
No, okay. So we'll
We just
finish
messing
up
with
with
her.
our gems. Right. Definitely just messing with you. Our gems for the day. You reminded me of something I think I struggle as a parent. One of my kids, just mostly one now, the youngest one. I
Picking on her.
can't. I don't have the patience to give her the attention that she needs because she drive me nuts. I'd be so over it. But Lil G, he has patience for her, but then he don't be wanting to do it because he be like, Mom,
Right.
like I done did my school for today. Okay, but help your little sister. Or I tell all of them, help me.
Right,
Anna.
right.
She need help from all of y'all. I can't do it. I'm tired. I don't have the capacity. I've been working all day. I just need to sit down. I got to drive around. Somebody sit down with her and do it, because when I sit down with her, I'm like, it's like starting from zero every single time, which is frustrating because I'm like, girl, I know you know this.
Right.
What's the sound of A? You know, I'm like, man, you know this. You're 10. You know this. And she just questions everything she's ever learned. And then she's in her head, you know, that they have this conversation, that dialogue. I'm like, I know you having a whole conversation in your head, but I want to hear it out loud. I need to hear what you're saying to yourself out loud so I can understand what you're thinking. And so I struggle with that. But I challenge myself to work on it. Or find somebody else to help her out because she needs Jesus.
You picking on me, Anna.
Oh, we gotta find patience for our children.
So with that, you know how I'm quick to tell my kids, like they say or do something, and I'll be looking like, what? And then I just need to know. I always regret knowing, but I'm like, please connect the dots for me. I need to know how you got from where we were, and when I went this way, you went like this, and then you still didn't meet me where we were supposed to be. And then they explain, and I'm like, I want to say that's stupid, but you can't say that because it'll crush them.
Should not say.
It'll be, it's more like, okay, so how else could we have done this? So it's like the critical thinking thing.
Right.
And I drive them crazy and I know it, but I see it working later. Like my son will come in the room and he'll be like, Mom, I have a question. Then he'll give me a scenario. He'll tell me all these things and then he'll be like, right? And I'm like, yeah. Right? Because like I see the critical thinking working, like, but he's having this conversation and working it out with me as a sounding board. There was a point in time where there was none of that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And with my kids, like we used to go grocery shopping. I'd be like, we're buying only cereal that is good for you. And they'd be like, well, I want like Fruity Pebbles or something. I'm like, okay, well, convince me. You know what I'm saying? And I was in the store one time and my kids, they had to come up with 3 good reasons and 2 extra reasons as to why I should get them whatever sugary cereal they wanted. And this guy was just like, I think that is so amazing. I said, they need these skills because like I'm not a good negotiator.
Right.
I'll be like, do you want it or no?
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not good with the back and forth. I want them to be able to, you know, haggle
Argue
if they need to. Yeah. Now I'll argue and I'll convince you. But if something's $12 and I'm like, you should have this. And you're like, oh, well, but no, I'm not doing that.
Right.
So I want them to have some skills that I didn't have. So I say that to say to challenge your children and not be afraid to challenge them. Even if they're going to be frustrated and it seems like they're not listening, they are. Even if you see it 7 years later or 6 years later or a couple of months or they 35 and all of a sudden they talking to their kids talking blah, blah, blah. You looking like, oh.
Right. You weren't listening.
Okay.
Yep.
So, you know, yeah, I think, you know, challenging your children in a healthy way and don't tell them things are stupid, even if that's what you're thinking. Just, you know, help them navigate a different thought process, you know, to get them to
absolutely
a place that makes sense.
I think too, the one thing I would just add as a suggestion, and I'm talking to myself first, is to carve out, well, two things, like model the behavior that we want our children to do, right? So oftentimes we're always like, oh, you need to read more to our children. But then ask yourself, when's the last time they see you pick up a book, right? So I'm talking to myself first, y'all. I ain't talking to nobody else. So that's that. It's like model the behavior that we're asking them to do. Like if we want them to study more, like do they see us studying? You know, are you actually carving out the time and saying, hey, this is our study session? Even if it's just 20 minutes, that's the thing too. Like we think it has to be this big chunk of time.
Right.
20 minutes, right? Hey, we're all going to read. Grab your book, you know, and maybe that's just our moment of just looking at pages and meditating. But we're all getting a book. We're all modeling that behavior. And I think that helps with our children. And then the other piece I would say too is like, I think we said it earlier about just giving ourselves grace, you know, offering ourselves grace. If there was a blueprint to parenting, we would already had it. We would already be scholars in it. We would have our PhD in parenting and we were teaching the course today. But we don't, you know, and every child, every human being is different, right? As we know, like no two snowflakes are alike, no two children and no two people are alike. So everything that works for our children, you're literally carving that out, specialized for that child. And so I think giving ourselves grace in learning that, because who your children are today in 2025, they gonna flip the script real quick and be somebody new tomorrow. Right. And then you're like, oh, wait, what? I thought you like pink. Or, you know, now they all like, I wear black all day. Oh, right. So it's like, that's hard to navigate, you know, just in general. So being able to give ourselves grace and then again, leaning on our village and calling on support with the people that we have around us. Just like, and I'm gonna use an example, they have it in with foster care children, like they have the respite, you know, when the children get a we need respite too. Like, so, you know, just whether it's foster care, they don't even matter. You have to have respite for your children. That's why tapping into an uncle, a mentor, or somebody that can just kind of fill some of those gaps that we can't always do as parents, you know. And 9 times out of 10, our children will listen to others, you know, over our parents, you know, over the parents anyway. So it's like, they can say exactly what we're saying, but it just came from so-and-so. Yeah. So it sounds differently. And it's like, that's the same. Matter of fact, I wrote the script and told them to say it to you, but, you know, great.
Right.
Now it
just
makes
don't
sense.
Point that out.
Right. Because then they don't want to listen anymore.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
This has been good. Thank you.
Thank y'all. Super dope. Super dope. Y'all tune in, follow, like, share, whatever you got to do, but support this podcast.
Yes. Thank you.
We don't say that.
I say it on
that's
the
our job.
description.
You should tell us to get any guest that we got to do that. That's our obligation. Yeah. It's hard to be like, follow me. Right. That's our job. We say that.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us on Talk to Them,
where every story counts and every voice matters. I think I said it backwards.
It doesn't matter.
That's great. That was great. Every voice. What you say?
Every story counts and every voice matters.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye.